Nowadays, the karma come back a lot faster. People you were ahead of them seem to shot past you. WrestleMania, high yourself, you done got tagged. Bottom rail on top master. Nowadays, the karma come back a lot faster. People you were ahead of them seem to shot past you. WrestleMania, high yourself, you done got tagged. Let me at him, don't let me Eve. Ain't we been here before? I feel a naked breeze. I just went to the store and bought extra leaves. Bloody murder, I need a couple accessories. Necessities, I bear them all and hold court with the lion so we can share the ball. You relying on sipping lean and Adderall. I'm relying on daily bread that manna fall. Whew, I'm about to manifest destiny. Manifold, Emmanuel is the recipe. Many your days a number like sesame. Why you grouchy, big birds for a lesser fee? Incessantly, incest with a lesser me. Gave birth to a higher power to like the 10th degree. All my chakras is balanced, you feel the energy. Married to wisdom, proposed to on bended knee. Gave her the ring, we broke the glass and jumped the broom. I'm on a natural high, call it the honeymoon. Love heals, but trust will give you some ugly wounds. And hate to kill your emotions worse than the 22. Ricochet, I'm coming from every which way.
But the years in which we are coming into has shown itself to be as an overarching theme. So with this article, which we reference here from the Independent Media News Network, or I guess you can say the newspaper, so on and so forth, it comes usually out of the UK, and certain things that are multimedia faceted and usually keeping up with certain current politics and geopolitics, socioeconomics, so on and so forth, many facets of life as can be covered. We come to this article, of course, by a Samuel Osborne, dated December 26, 2017. And the topic which we intend to get into was many of the meetings within the forum, all of the reports that came out of the last UN General Assembly out there at the United Nations. But, if ones haven't heard up until this point, the article that we're referencing here is U.S. Ambassador hails $285 million cut in funding for the United Nations, or the UN, as a, quote, big step in the right direction, unquote. Samuel Osborne subscripts this as, "We will no longer let the generosity of the American people be taken advantage of or remain unchecked," unquote. The U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. And this article really gets into much of what the Ambassador, Nikki Haley, had explained and mostly prepared and disseminated there at the UN as per U.S. policy going forward in this particular time. Now, as we have seen, it has unraveled throughout the year, and we definitely have, taken it in stride and really tried to disseminate as much information and share as much as we could with a little bit of commentary for certain ones so that they at least could get a snapshot, at least get a first word or get the bullet point on certain subjects so one could actually do the research for themselves and see how it would pertain to them and, of course, their lives and those around them in that sense. And it has been interesting, just to say the least. But even so, with this current news coming here from the UN and U.S. policy showing itself forward, and this all pertaining, of course, to the not so far in the past time here that, of course, the new administration had sought to make sure that they announced that the U.S., of course, would be recognizing Jerusalem as capital of the state of Israel with the move of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. We definitely seek to connect all of these, not just into one basket, but to give the framework of how not only this year has played out, but the administration here on these shores, as well as those who are in collaboration and those, of course, being affected by it. So getting into this article again by Samuel Osborne, it reads as such: the United States government has claimed to have negotiated a significant cut to the United Nations budget. The U.S. mission to the UN said the 2018-2019 budget would be slashed by over $285 million, 213 million euros in the, of course, exchange. And reductions would also be made to the UN's management and support functions. But the announcement did not make clear what effect the budget reduction will have on the U.S. contribution. Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, said inefficiency and overspending of the organization is well known. We will no longer let the generosity of the American people be taken advantage of or remain unchecked, she said. This historic reduction in spending, in addition to many other moves toward a more efficient and accountable UN, is a big step in the right direction. While we are pleased with the results of this year's budget negotiations, you can be sure we'll continue to look at ways to increase the UN's efficiency while protecting our interests. It comes after Donald Trump threatened to cut off aid to any country in the UN that voted against his decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Quote, let them vote against us, unquote, the U.S. president said. We'll save a lot. We don't care. Ms. Haley sent letters to over 180 countries warning them Washington would be taking the names of those who voted against the U.S. The UN General Assembly went on to vote overwhelmingly to denounce Mr. Trump's decision. The non-binding resolution declaring the U.S. decision on Jerusalem null and void and was approved 128 to 9. It reaffirmed what has been the UN's stand on the divided holy city since 1967. Jerusalem's final status must be decided in direct negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. The Trump administration made it clear the vote would have no effect on its plans to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And that ends our reading of this particular article here from the independent company there in the United Kingdom by a one Samuel Osborne. Interesting, just to say the least, our brothers and sisters, for once kind of have a framework of the happenings that probably are still running on the news and media outlets as we speak. But just, a tidbit to give one's a peek behind the curtain on what's actually been going on, not only on the surface, but beneath the surface as far as that is concerned. And paying attention a lot more to the policies which have been put in place and how these politics are being played out. One should definitely, take a deeper look into a lot of what we have seen here just so far. And again, just referencing this and seeing how certain things have played out up until this point, find connections not only within international politics as far as that is concerned, but of course I don't seek to delve too much into this. We hope to save a little bit of reason and time, especially with our brethren, just to, kind of not only clear the air, but, kind of get a handle on certain things. Therefore, at least, the final 30 minutes of our podcast here. So just to prepare our brother here on the dashboard, with that, I give so much thanks, of course, as always, for his labor of love. But, just a shout out to the eye for, that particular reason to come here at the, initial last 30 minutes or so within the grace period, just to reason a bit on a few of the topics which we, of course, to bring forward. But continuing on, in this sense, our brothers and sisters, just to lay the foundation as far as that is concerned, which we are seeing here on the outset. And as I mentioned, we'll connect the dots a little more for one and kind of give them, a panoramic view of what we are seeing here and how things are particularly playing out on a grander stage. So at least then they'll have as much information as they can so that they can make the assessments needed moving forward. But even so, just moving on to our next topic, of course, we even have a short clip on a recording, for this one as well. But thought to read out our first initial thoughts, of course, and a lot of the referencing, and of course, give a short commentary so one can have that for the record. Just sharing these things with the really gives us the strength to know that our group or our fellowship or our ones-and-ones who check us out, whether they be here on the call or we're here to forward from the recording, are put in a position that they can make a fully informed decision. Really, we take, just to say in a mundane sense, we take pride in that. We definitely seek to give ones as much information as possible so that they, are not beheld by anything that we, of course, already have within our own minds that we think for ourselves. And we hope, and pray that ones-and-ones would do so also for themselves. But even so, with our next topic, of course, that we are looking to bring forward here, we had mentioned so many times before to keep an eye out on many of the referendums that, of course, would happen all across Europe, but also the election that would take place, especially on the African continent, there in Latin America, as well as the Caribbean. But to the African continent, as we mentioned earlier this year, of course, with Angola, South Africa at a certain political state, Kenya, of course, at a particular helm in which Uhuru Kenyatta, of course, has emerged again as the president of Kenya. We again go to the country in the west known as Liberia. And, of course, we have made our own comments from certain time to time and, given certain commentary to a certain extent. We still, seek for the progression of those there in Liberia and those in the diaspora to keep eyes out on certain things such as these. And, of course, send our love and also, our support for certain ones there. But even so here, just keeping to the current news and the current events, Yefdeyah, presidential candidate, has been elected there in the Liberian West African country in the first transfer of power in 73 years, the first successful transfer of power. No bloodshed in this, just a complete process as though ones would see fit in the political structure, of course, which has been put into place since its inception. And, not to bring in any of our own personal, thoughts, our personal ideas on this, but again, to extend an olive branch, as they would say, quote unquote. But, and of course, giving our support for newly elected President Yefdeyah, former football star of what they would call the PSG football club, or PSG, of course, standing for Paris Saint-Germain, there in Paris, of the country of France, which this former football elite star, we would say, has become a political figure and revered one, as we would see, and have followed this particular story from such a time. And much of the support of the people definitely has come to a helm for President Yefdeyah at this time, President-elect Yefdeyah, and we definitely have found much interesting information just coming forward to our podcast before checking out certain things. And, of course, the Liberian election process was a very interesting one, just to say the least on that sense, which ones, of course, would find out if they do a little research, because mainly the final two candidates that came forward at this particular time before, just yesterday and the day before, there came to a runoff between Mr. Yefdeyah and a former administration member, the vice president, if I'm not mistaken. Ones, of course, can do the research for themselves. And his name escapes me at this particular moment as we were following the story and keep it up with many of the other elections around the continent and many other places as well. But a former administration member, we were almost sure that it was the former vice president to President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who, of course, has been held, I guess you can say, as a transitional president, but a very formidable woman that we had definitely watched over the years and, just kind of admired from certain aspects from afar. And again, just putting certain things into place, we, again, hail Liberia for much of what has transpired at this particular time, showing the first initial election process since its inception and showing no rampage, no hiccups. Well, a few hiccups here and there, but again, still a very, very young nation as far as bringing this together, and this is a great achievement, just to say the least, bringing our political process and seeing it all the way up into its fruition. It definitely brought out lots of thoughts within I, and again, just assessing it from afar. But even so, this particular article, before we actually get into our recording, which we have set here for this evening, this article, of course, and many other articles spoken out, the media news networks, the BBC, Reuters, many other ones speaking up on this particular issue and showing a certain interest to get certain information out so the ones, of course, could share this and have it for themselves and assess for themselves. But even so, this are coming from Ghana Web via Reuters. Former soccer star George Weah has defeated Vice President Joseph Boakai. Joseph Boakai, that's the name that we, of course, thought to bring forward to the eye. So if we could wing it a bit, but wanted to be sure that we got the former vice president's name correct. But here, to win Liberia's presidential runoff election with 61.5% of the vote based on 98.1% of ballots cast. The Election Commission said on Thursday, Weah will succeed incumbent President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf next month in what will be Liberia's first democratic transition since 1944. Weah supporters paraded through the streets of the capital, Monrovia, and honked car horns to celebrate the news. Weah grew up in Claratown slum in Monrovia and went on to star for AC Milan and PSG Paris Saint-Germain and Chelsea, all football clubs, to become the only African to win the FIFA World Player of the Year. His rags to riches story helped him tap into dissatisfaction with Johnson Sirleaf's 12-year tenure, which drew a line under years of civil war, but was criticized for failing to root out elite corruption or persistent poverty. Turnout for the second round stood at 56%. The NEC, or the National Election Committee Chairman, Jerome Korakoya, told reporters in Monrovia. Liberia is Africa's oldest modern republic and was founded by freed U.S. slaves in 1847. Of course, we have our gripe with that particular topic and that particular sentence there, but we hold and reserve our comments for further examination. Its last democratic transfer of power occurred in 1944 and was followed by a military coup in 1980 and a 14-year civil war that ended only in 2003. The U.S. base said there were, quote, notable improvements, unquote, in the handling of Tuesday's vote from the first round in October, echoing positive assessments from other international observers. Of course, that ends our article here from GhanaWeb.com via Reuters. But again, we won't read too much into a lot of what has transpired with the election process there in Liberia, leaving it as a shining example for this past year, of course, with many of the electoral processes that have come to a helm, as we had mentioned, for ones to, of course, put on their calendars, put in their notes, and to keep watch upon. But leaving that for further example.
Every law that ever prevented our